Over my many years with the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, there's always been this one opinion that has pissed me off. And the opinion is that Fnaf 2 is a prequel. So before you take out your pitchforks and burn me at the stake, just please listen. Just until very recently, I actually learned the full lore of this game, and I've just had a very biased opinion that the order that the game's released is the order of the story. And that's why in this video, I will either prove myself wrong or I'll prove myself right with my theory. I will try to do as little bias as possible. Also, guys, before we start the video, please like and subscribe. I'm begging you, bro. I'd literally kill to get to 2K. I will now be covering the main reasons why people believe FNAF 2 is a prequel game. First off, Phone Guy. Phone Guy in the first game is killed on around night 4. But then, in the second game, you can clearly hear the exact same voice giving you instructions.
Hello? Hello? I wanted to record a message for you to help you get settled in on your first night. Well, if you're hearing this, then chances are you've made a very poor career choice.
Leading people to believe that FNAF 2 came first, because there's no way Phone Guy could have resurrected. Second, the Bite of 87. In FNAF 1 Night 1, Phone Guy states that the animatronics used to be allowed to roam around during the daytime, but then there was the Bite of 87. With all the evidence that has been given to us, it is mainly believed that it was either Toy Chica, Mangle, or Withered Foxy who committed the Bite of 87, and all of those characters appear in FNAF 2. So there's no way Phone Guy could have known about something that would happen in the future. And one more very compelling argument is the puppet. In the Give Life minigame, it shows the puppet giving life to the animatronics by putting the children's spirits inside. If we believe that FNAF 1 comes before FNAF 2, that means there must be a puppet animatronic giving life to the OGs. But sadly, throughout the entire gameplay, we do not see the puppet animatronic once in FNAF 1. First, let's cover Phone Guy. In research for this video, I took out my Five Nights at Freddy's The Ultimate Guide book. And it says in this one paragraph under Five Nights at Freddy's 2, "We meet again, ... Phone Guy." I will now read the paragraph. Quote, "Sounds like Phone Guy's still alive, so this game likely takes place before the events of the last one. That or Phone Guy's immortal." Also, near the end of the book, it supplies you with things like a cookbook, what the heck? The book, like summaries, and the FNAF Phone Guy transcripts. And it says here on night 2, when talking about the previous pizzeria, it talks about Fredbear's Family Diner. When it's referring to the previous restaurant, it could have been referring to the Freddy Fazbear's from FNAF 1, but it kind of solidifies that this comes before FNAF 1 because it talks about Fredbear's Family Diner, which we all know is the first pizzeria / restaurant in the timeline. Another thing I'd like to talk about that people don't usually refer to when trying to prove their theories is the FNAF 4 minigames. In one of the FNAF 4 minigames, the crying child walks outside, and you can interact with many children playing with toy animatronic merchandise. In the FNAF 4 minigames, the Fredbear's Family Diner is still definitely open, but since there are toys of the FNAF 2 animatronics, that means a pizzeria would be open during the same time as Fredbear's Family Diner. Meaning, since there are things like Mangle, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, Toy Freddy, since those are all toys that children are playing with, that means I think it's safe to assume that the FNAF 2 pizzeria was open at the same time as Fredbear's Family Diner. The next thing I want to point out are the Withered animatronics. Now, I don't like relying on things like the books or the movies or anything outside of the game canon for information, but it states in the movie that the Withered animatronics were originally prototypes of what they were going to use for the pizzeria. But the movie also states that the Fnaf 1 location was a franchise part of the pizzerias. I don't know. The popular theory is that they took the prototype animatronics and refurbished them to become the Fnaf 1 animatronics. But since the lack of evidence in that theory, I can't really use it. Because you can say the exact same thing but reversed. You could say that after William destroyed the Fnaf 1 animatronics, they tried to refurbish them, but then ended up scrapping them in the end and replacing them with toy animatronics. In fact, I think it's so reliable that is the theory that I believe. But like I said, no bias. But I have one reason that will completely prove that the Fnaf 1 animatronics were the original animatronics. In the majority of Five Nights at Freddy's canon media, it states that not only the souls of the children are inside the animatronics, but also the corpses. Yikes. But when we look at animatronics like Withered Foxy or any of the Withereds, we can kind of see inside of their chest cavities. And where I don't think that a 3, 4, I don't know how tall 5-year-olds are, could fit into a leg or an arm. So we're just going to assume that he put it in the chest cavity. And since we can see inside, that means that there's no way that there's a child in there. But with the Fnaf 1 animatronics, people say that all the animatronics smell bad, as if something died in there. And since the chest cavity is sealed, we can never see inside. And let's say they got refurbished, and since everybody knows that Fazbear Entertainment is a really sketchy company, they could have taken the corpses and just thrown them out. Meaning that it makes sense why we don't see the corpses in FNAF 2. So now we have one piece of evidence supporting the theory, and one piece of evidence denying the theory. Next, I want to point out what Phone Guy says on night 4, 5, and 6. In night 4, he talks about how there's an investigation going on under the restaurant due to the missing children. On night 5, he doesn't say much, but he does say that the building is on lockdown. And on night 6, he says, hello, what on earth are you still doing there? The place is closed down at least for a while. Someone used the suits. We had a spare one in the back, a yellow one. Somebody used it. Now none of them are acting right. And if we can put 2 and 2 together to make 5, we can understand that this was obviously referring to the missing children's incident. Meaning either William came back to kill children again, or this was the first time in the series where the missing children's incident has happened. We know that there's been many instances of the missing children's incident in the franchise, like Security Breach, FNAF 1, FNAF 3, I'm pretty sure. Right now, it looks like this theory could go either way. But I have one piece of information I want to point out. Based off the information that we have, it looks like that William came in as a security guard to kill the children. But if William is the owner of the company, then why would he need to come in as a security guard? That's the thing. In the majority of YouTuber timelines or YouTuber theories, and based off the information we have, it so that makes it a perfect cover for him to come in as a different alias, work there, and kill more kids. But yet, there's still a big problem. There's still a lack of evidence, meaning I can't fairly give this to either side without a bias. At this point, I was stumped. Every single theory I had, the more I looked into it, could have been applied to either side. I looked everywhere for something to prove it right or wrong, including the cookbook, and I was hopeless. Until I found one theory that might be so ridiculous that it barely applies, but it's the only thing I have. When we look in the FNAF 2 game, there's a chance that in the prize corner, there can spawn an endoskeleton specifically Endo 02. In Fnaf 1, there is an endoskeleton sitting in the parts and service room, clearly different from this endoskeleton. That endoskeleton's name is Endo 01, proving that the first version was in the first game. Because if you think about it, why would you name your first endoskeleton Endo 02 and then plan to name your second one Endo 01? Next up, the problem with Phone Guy. My excuse for this is that Scott Cawthon at the time was a relatively small developer, and he couldn't pay top dollar for voice actors, so he did the majority of voices himself, as shown in FNAF 1, FNAF 2, FNAF 3, and a little cameo in FNAF 4. Though I can say he does sound a little bit different in FNAF 3, that's still definitely Scott Cawthon's voice. That's also why after every game past FNAF 4, each character has more talking, and there is just more voice lines, and not Circus Baby sounding like Scott Cawthon. In fact, Scott Cawthon was responsible for making Kellen Goff one of the most popular voice actors ever, because he's voiced majority of the Freddy animatronics, including Foxy in the FNAF movie, and Toy Freddy in FNAF 2. Now for the Bite of 87. The thing is, out of those three suspects, one of those is in FNAF 1. Obviously, we can tell that Toy Chica is 100% from FNAF 2. Same with Mingle. Withered Foxy. A lot of people say Withered Foxy due to the belief of FNAF 2 coming first, but it's just Foxy in general. Meaning, regular Foxy did the Bite of 87, and that is why they are not allowed to roam during the daytime. We have now reached the end of the video. I'm not saying that every piece of information I put here is 100% accurate, but this is just what I believe. You don't have to agree with it, and if you don't, I encourage you to put in the comments anything I missed, anything you don't agree with, and why, and I will be sure to cover it in the next video. Also, please consider subscribing. We are at 1.6k at the time of me recording this video. I need to get to 2k. It's literally my dream. Please.